when it was announced that I would be the CEO of a large company, I was happy for 2 days, really happy. And the third day, life still felt hollow and empty, and life was back to normal. There's one book called Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. It was by an Australian hospice maker. So she basically says whether it's young or old or rich or poor, she spent time with terminally ill in the last moments of their life. And she says all of them regret the same few things. And they're not big things. Nobody regrets that they didn't have one extra bungalow or bank balance. They all regretted that we didn't spend time with family. We worked too hard and we kind of never kept in touch with friends. And
was there a specific point that flipped this thinking for you, or it was just sort of a slow burn evolution?
I started as a professional who was really happy what I did, but of course worked really hard to kind of achieve more and more. But it was beginning to not be as much fun. Trying to overachieve in one part of life,
right,
and pausing another part, let's say parenting part, assuming that you can catch up on that later, is not going to happen.
It's a false sort of premise.
I hate that philosophy of do this, achieve this, and then be happy. I don't think that you can work hard and be happy at the same time.
You can sequence it. You're constantly making choices, right? And that's an evolution. You don't make the right choice on day one. Would you make any different choices now?
2 years back, my wife was like, we need to have a really big birthday party for the kids. I said, okay, we can just have a pizza party or whatever. She said, no, they're turning 10. I'm like, oh my God, they've turned 10. That was like a shocking moment for me.
Oh, wow.
I just didn't realize I just thought they were still 3 or 4, and it may sound very...
It stays in your mind. They're still babies.
Exactly. The time just flew by, and I was like, they're 10 already.
There's a lot of people who have been wanting to, or were wanting to do what you've done in the last couple of years, which is intentionally taking a break from your highly successful professional career. You didn't just leave any job. You are a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar business.
Yeah.
So I can totally imagine to walk away from all that.
So one of the big thing for me during this phase of my life was how best can I capture that magic window, whatever is left of it, because I missed a large part of that. And can I just be more intentional? Yeah. So if kids know that they have a dad who's listening and who's just emotionally there, I believe they feel a lot more secure and grow up into individuals who feel very secure about their own presence and identity. And the ultimate goal of life is not to maximize wealth, but to maximize happiness, good moments, joyful moments.
Vikaash, thanks for joining me today in DadSense show.
Thanks for having me, Subhasis.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to chatting with you. I know we run into each other and we talk about parenting, and this has been a little effort from me to engage with dads, talk about parenting, fatherhood. As you and I joked, moms are very good at this. Yeah. They're talking all the time. They're sharing knowledge, sharing experiences, and you and I both agree that dads don't do it as much.
Yes.
So this is a great opportunity for us to do that, and hopefully our fellow dads and moms will get something from this.
No, I think it's perfect. I'm looking forward to it. And in fact, I remember the number of times we've connected. It's been mostly about being a dad.
Correct.
So it's pretty.
Exactly.
It's pretty. I'm looking forward to this. It'll be fun.
Thank you. Typically, we've all become dads. We've been so used to becoming dads and seeing kids. Sometimes we forget we were kids too. And, I believe that who we are and who we become as adults, including who we are as dads and parents, has a lot to do with how we were as children, how we saw our parents, how our parents saw us. So I would love for us to jog your memory and go to your childhood. Think about those times when you were a kid, growing up with your dad and mom, maybe siblings, and we'll start there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's great. So let me look back. So I had a pretty comfortable childhood. I was born in Hyderabad to parents who had by then shifted to Hyderabad. So my dad was a businessman, and I had 2 elder siblings, both sisters. So if I can think of the earliest memories as a child, it was like we were always well taken care of. It was not that we had a very lavish lifestyle, but our parents ensured that they spent time with us, took us to the garden, and generally I had a very happy childhood till up to the teenage years.
That's beautiful.
Yes, and also the earliest memories of my parents, really taking time and showering their care on us. So they really spent a lot of time with us. They were not the busy parents that we
Your
usually.
dad too?
That's right. My dad too. He would love to spend
That's
time.
incredible.
I have so many memories of going and playing in the nearby park, shuttle or frisbee or some other game with my dad. So yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, early part of childhood, I would say, pretty middle class upbringing, but still we had quite a lot of fun.
That's wonderful. Particularly what struck me was your dad spending time with you, because I know that a lot of dads from that generation, they were great dads in being the providers, right? They worked hard. They gave us resources. I'm talking about my own experience. My dad was a wonderful dad. It's just that I didn't have enough time with
Time of
him,
him.
because he was away providing, as we say.
Yeah.
So a lot of my time of parenting experience was with my mom. So it's kind of refreshing that even in that, and particularly in being in business, which is probably more demanding than a job, your dad was intentional about spending time with you.
Yeah, I mean, we had our share of ups and downs, but I
course.
think the one thing that struck out, and I really had my schooling in a very ordinary and regular school
Yep.
with lots and lots of kids in the same class. But the my father always ensured that he takes time,
Right.
for all the park and all the other school events. He would always be there. Whether it's the weekend, we had these karate classes that he had made me join. So he would get up at 5:30 in the morning to ensure he can take me to the karate combat classes, and then
That's
whether
wonderful.
it's the roller skating during one summer holiday. So yeah, I mean, it was great at that time. Obviously we didn't know that these were really moments to cherish, but
Yeah.
now that I look back, I think we spent quite a good amount of time till up to the teenage years with our parents.
Yeah. And how's mom?
Yeah, my mom, like, what we would expect from a, very caring, a very, doting Indian mother.
Yep.
She, I was the only child in terms of the only boy.
Yeah.
So,
So
there's
pampered
always
and
a,
spoiled.
exactly. And there's always
Yeah.
a special bond between moms and
There
child.
is.
And the earliest, again, the memories of mom are like, she would let me be. Of course, my parents in that way, the one thing which was non-negotiable for them is, putting in effort.
Yeah.
And I can relate to some of the stories and events that happened later on in my life. But apart from that, they always backed me, and even later years, even when I myself hadn't figured out what I wanted to do of my career or life, they always said, as long as you're being sincere and you're putting in the effort, you can figure out and choose what you would want to do. So those
Yeah.
are the memories which stay with me. Obviously, those I'm talking about 1990s. So
Crazy.
that way we were pretty blessed to have parents who just gave us a free hand
Yeah.
and supported us.
Because a lot of times, we've heard so many stories about how parents pretty much, have a huge role in what children end up doing, right?
Absolutely.
Particularly back in that generation, 80s, 90s.
No, I was pretty lucky that way, and also the fact that we didn't have a huge backing or a large business to kind of I was expected to kind of
Run.
get into.
Yeah.
Also gave me the freedom to kind of then take help of the backing I'm getting from my parents,
Yeah.
and just pursue whatever I at that point in time thought could be interesting and could help me move forward in life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. It takes me back to my own memory. My dad has had a business too. But I remember similarly, he never, ever told me anything like, and I was the only son too. So I have 3 sisters and I'm the only son. Never ever put that pressure that you're going to inherit all of this.
Yeah.
And you choose what you want to do.
That's
And
amazing.
I always feel grateful.
Yeah.
It was a different thing that I never wanted to do that myself.
Yeah.
But it was great to just be on the same page with your dad.
A lot of pressure off then to just then figure out
just to do what you want
Yeah.
to do. Yeah. And would you say, now I know how you parent and how involved you are, and I can relate to that. Like, would you say that shaped who you became as a father? Like you?
So actually, I was just reflecting on this myself.
Yeah.
There are 2 parts to it. If you ask today, yes, but there's as we move forward through my teenage years and the later years, one of the things which I also think defined or kind of left a deep impression on me was the entire financial security aspect.
Right.
Growing up was, sometimes it's not easy, and then we went through ups and downs. So
Of course.
So when I look back, the first 10 years of my kids, and I'll come to the my kids' story.
Yeah,
but
we'll get there.
Yeah, but I think a lot of those early years, those impressions and experiences of mine, especially on the financial security part, shaped up my parenting style and who I was and how I showed up as a dad. So, for example, what I really valued up till very recently was ensuring the financial security of my kids, and also ensuring that they are, they're cared for, but at the same time, they go through the rigor, so that they can kind of face life's challenges. So I think
So help me explain it a little bit more.
yeah. So, you'd want to ensure, one, obviously, your kids do not go through some of the challenges you go through financially. So that was one. But more importantly, when you really slog it out to kind of have a comfortable life, which I did in terms of just the journey on the financial side, you would want to ensure your kids are also prepared for the rigor.
Right.
And they're not mollycoddled.
So by role modeling that, or
by just ensuring that there's a routine that they're pushed a little bit more than normal in terms of whether the classes that they join or in terms of what they expected to do at home.
Right.
So I kind of my philosophy was, let them also go through the rigor a little bit more. Let them have more classes, even if it's sport, let them follow a schedule, let them bend their back a little bit more, because we never know what challenges life shapes up. So some of those, actually, if I look back, until up till recently, kind of also shaped the way I kind of was showing up as dad. I was slightly tough in terms of.
But how do you feel about it? I mean, it sounds good to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge. It's a fine balance.
Yeah, it's a dance.
But I think it's important to obviously ensure the kids have a framework within which they kind of get to choose what they do. I think it's good, but I also think if
would you have done something differently?
If we are looking for financial security a lot,
Yeah.
I think even though specifically we don't tell it to our kids, they get it as well. So you're passing some of the insecurity that you are carrying as adult, much beyond the point that where you're still comfortably placed in life. You're still carrying your early childhood kind of insecurity, and sometimes that kind of shows up in the way subconsciously you
more
kind of
than
act.
you
Yes,
want
and kids pick up. Kids are very, very intelligent. They pick that up very quickly. Yes. So I think for me, a big part of my journey in the last couple of years has been, how do I get over my early mindset, which I wasn't even aware of, by the way, and ensure that I don't get that reflected in my conversations or in the way I kind of show up for my kids.
That's fascinating, and I love how you kind of created that awareness, right? I'd be curious to know, how did that journey look like? Like, at what point did you realize that this is not serving what I'm actually trying to achieve, and it's underserving probably?
Yeah, so actually it's a little bit counterintuitive. So when we were blessed with the kids, I thought my simple mantra, like most Indian parents, was work really hard, achieve success. Obviously, I also wanted to make something of myself,
of course,
and also save a lot of money for the kids. So that's a simple mantra. So I actually, from the time the kids were born up till they were 10 years of age, roughly, I must have spent a disproportionate amount of my time at work, really slogging it hard. I was working for a large world's largest private equity firm, and I would routinely spend 15, 18 hours at work. And I thought, if I earn enough, I'm doing my duty as a dad.
Right.
And that was also the time we were kind of ensuring we achieve financial stability. So the early part would be, I remember when the kids were young, I would spend so much time at work that by the time I come back home and they would say, "Hey, Papa, we want to play with you," I'm like, "I'm too tired."
So tired, yeah.
But I thought it was pretty okay because I'm earning the money, which solve everything else for the kids. So I think it took me a lot of time to realize that money, one, you have very small window with the kids. We call it the magic window, before they are on their own. And also money, as I said earlier to you, money can only solve money problems. So over the last 2-3 years, as I kind of also entering my the second half of my own journey in life, we call it the second half, I realized that a lot of the success markers that we kind of traditionally follow, which we were taught as kids as well, which is work really hard, earn a lot of money, have an amazing designation or title, or run a large business, be successful, and the success will bring happiness. I think my big learning, and it's a bit philosophical, but my big learning has been, it's not success and then happiness. It's like you be happy and success kind of just will come in whichever pursuit you do. You kind of select to work on just because you're passionate about it and you kind of are successful. So what's changed with that is I spend more time with the kids now and let them be, and also prioritize those small moments with the kids instead of having big plans and kind of ensuring that everything over the next 30 years is taken care of. So
Right.
while providing for them and securing them is important, but also just being there in this growing
present.
years,
Yeah.
present is very important.
Was there a specific, can you point it to a specific point, trigger, anything, that event that flipped this thinking for you, or it was just sort of a slow burn evolution?
Yeah, I mean, it's no, there were definitely a couple of crucibles.
Okay.
But kind of, as I was going through my journey, I realized, I had set a lot of goals for myself, and all of those extrinsic goals, extrinsic kind of milestones, whether it is, to achieve a certain title or a certain amount of money,
Wealth, yeah.
or join a certain company and achieve a certain level of in the company in terms of the grade, all of those, if I look back, ultimately it was assumed that will help me get happiness and also happiness for the family. But as I kind of achieved some of those goals which I had set, and even I achieved the stretched goals, I realized that it's a hedonic treadmill, that you keep setting up more goals and more targets,
extending itself.
and we just keep extending itself, and we keep saying, if this happens, then we're going to be successful, and then we'll be happy. But the problem that happened in my case, I'm sure in many cases, we don't follow the equation. We say, once this happens, work really hard, be miserable, achieve success, and then instead of being happy, we go back and say, repeat. Have a stretch target and repeat the whole thing. And I kept doing that. So at a certain point in time, I realized that, after achieving whatever I had set my mind on, I still wasn't happy. And then when you're not happy, and
what made you feel that you're not happy? Like, what,
I mean, I was.
what was missing?
I mean, we just keep. So let me give you an example. When it was announced that I would be the CEO of a large company, I was happy for 2 days, really happy, and I got lots of congratulatory messages. And the third day, life still felt hollow and empty, and life was back to normal. So
What about life felt hollow to you?
I mean, you're pursuing something external to ensure that you set a certain impression about yourself to the world at large and prove yourself.
Right.
But the joy, which I realized later, is in simple and smaller
moments,
things, which is the moments with kids. For example, it's in just taking care of my health, having a good night's sleep. And
So you missed all that?
I missed a lot of those things, and I thought success will solve for it, but it did not. So I had a little bit of and I read I read 1 or 2 books which were really at that point in time crucible moments for me. There's one book called Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. It was by an Australian hospice maker.
that.
So she basically says, whether it's young or old or rich or poor, she spent time with terminally ill in the last moments of their life. And she says all of them regret the same few things. And they're not big things. Nobody regrets that they didn't have one extra bungalow or bank balance. They all regretted that we didn't spend time with family. We worked too hard and we kind of never kept in touch with friends. And all of these,
These
simple
were
stuff.
common regrets. Irrespective
across
of where
age,
they, right.
irrespective of and these were people who were dying, so in the last stages of life, vulnerable, so it was not made up. So reading that book was really like a splash of cold water. And with some of the other crucible moments that happened at that point in time, I really had a hard look at life. And while I was like a parent on autopilot, trying to care and provide and being overprotective, but ensuring kids have the rigor, I kind of someday suddenly switch happened that it has to be beyond this, and we have to encourage our kids to look for joy and to be happy and pursue things they're passionate about, and not just do things because it's acceptable or it'll be great from a outsider's perspective.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I know it's not easy to kind of go through that, sharing this. I appreciate you sharing this. I can relate to that for sure. I was curious. We will go back and forth in the whole timeline.
Sure.
Let's go back now. And you and Kavita, your wife, take us back to when you became parents. I know you got twins.
Yes.
So take us back to that moment and how were some of the early years of being parents, and we'll come back to some other topics.
Perfect. So, just to give a background, I have blessed with twins. So a boy and a girl, Cherished and Shrishti. So the funny part is that, while we knew that
And they're 12. How old are they
they're
now?
12, they're
Yep.
12 years now, so
Yep.
they're in 7th grade. So when we were expecting, the day we came to know, which was probably in the third or the third month, the day we came to know that we were blessed with twins. Also was the day I came to know that I finally got the offer from the large private equity firm that I was waiting
Oh,
for.
wow.
It took
That's
6
beautiful.
months. So in a way, I think that they got they set the course for us, and they got their own good luck.
Right.
If I remember about the early part, they were premature kids because they were twins.
Twins,
So
yep.
one, obviously, when we didn't know the combination, we knew it was twins. So when they first announced that it was a girl, you can't imagine the happiness that I had, because
Yeah,
dads
dads and girls, yeah.
dad loves girls. So I was super elated, and then 7 minutes later they said there's a boy. I said, perfect, we have a perfect
that's
combo, and we were
beautiful.
super blessed. It was short-lived though, because they kind of were
Yeah.
sent to the
NICU, yep.
CU incubation for some time, and they went through ups and downs, quite
Yeah.
quite tough. But after a month, they were
Was
okay.
it in Hyderabad or?
It was all in Hyderabad.
Okay.
And they were not doing well for some time. Both
Yeah.
of them had challenges because of the premature nature. But after a month, it was all fine, touch wood, and I think it made them a lot more resilient.
Right.
And the early parts, then we moved to Mumbai, because I had taken up that role in Mumbai. And the early part, I remember that while I spent a disproportionate amount of time at work, but me and my wife really had a great time bringing up the kids. We had a challenge because we didn't have that much of a support system.
Family, yep.
But my wife was amazing. So she was really took care of the kids. And while I didn't spend as much time, but the little time that I spent with the kids over the weekends, we would always ensure we go out and ensure they play. And sometimes, funnily, my wife and I would just be on autopilot, because having two kids, if one of them falls sick at 3 in the night, then it's just autopilot. One parent intuitively takes care of the kid which has fallen sick. Sometimes you may also have to reach out to the doctor at that time, and the other takes care of the other kid, because both are pretty young.
Right.
So, but I do remember that while it was challenging just logistically, having twins, not having too much help, and I was also in the early stages, the growth stage of my career. But I look back at those times with very fond memories, that while logistically it was a bit challenging, but it was a lot of fun.
Yep. Great memories. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sometimes when you look back in the past, I can go back to my own memory as well. We were parents, and I know how, and we just one. I mean, I can't imagine having two at the same time.
It gets easier. It's tough in the beginning, but it gets easier.
Yeah. I can relate to that. And would you say that, in spite of your schedule, like you had to throw yourself into the parenting responsibilities?
Yeah, absolutely. So my wife was amazing. So she took on a lot. Of course, I gave the best I could in all the other times. So what happens, funnily, Subhasis, is once you become a parent, a shift happens internally.
Yeah.
And it's no longer about my aspirations or what my wife would want to do. First common theme and goal for both of us is our kids. So well-being, I'm sure it's for most parents. And when that shift happens, then you're pretty much on autopilot on all the decisions, right? You come back from a hard day at work, but if the kids need the time or they're not well, the first priority is the kids.
Sure.
Then you solve for your partner, and then you solve for your own time.
Yeah.
So I would say, while I didn't get too much time, but I was always there. And I would always, I was a hustler, so would juggle around things to ensure I'm there for the key things. But I must say that most of the bulk of the heavy lifting was done by my wife in the early part of the journey.
Well, it makes sense. One of the things that I think about a lot of dads who are, new dads or dads and moms raising younger children than ours, they have a lot of dilemma, on a daily basis. Like, should I do this or do that, right? Should I go to that next meeting or that next social mixer, or go home and be with my child? You're constantly making choices, right? And that's an evolution. You don't make the right choice on day one. So what would you, looking back, and if you think of yourself, being Srishti and Cherished, being 3 or 4, and you had that dilemma, and you chose what you chose, would you make any different choices now?
Absolutely. I would make a lot of different choices. And I think the realization, I worked too hard and spent a lot of time at work. I thought if I do that and earn enough money, I'm really, really ensuring a safe future for my kids. And while that may be true in part, I think because I was myself going through my own journey in understanding about life and what what it is all about, I kind of missed the whole point.
Yeah.
And the point is that while you can do all of that and have the career progression, and you should obviously work hard and be passionate about work, but also the window you have with kids, we always overestimate the window we have. Plus that in those formative years, the kids would really love to be and spend time with us, because they look up to us, and how they perceive and frame their views of life, and how they figure out their own identity. They're all figuring it out through us and through our soft and through our soft and hard kind of gestures. So I think if I look back, and I thought about this long and hard, and that's why I course corrected 2 years back when I took a sabbatical late last year.
We'll talk about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think I worked too hard, and I thought everything else would be taken care of.
Right.
But I think if I were given a choice to do it differently, I would not abandon the job and just be at home, but I would try to steal more moments with my kids. Just be there for those special occasions, whether it's the first day at school or whether it's just showing up on a Friday afternoon to pick them up from a school bus when they're not expecting, which I know you do some of those. So I missed all of that.
Yeah.
And I would really pretty much leave home at 7:38 and come back by 10 in the night. And that was pretty much the routine for the first 7-8 years. So that was a big learning.
Yeah.
And while we can all as parents justify we're doing it for the kids, I think deep down, the career is a 40-50 year journey, but the kids when they're growing up, they grow up very quickly. And
That's
then
a good math.
Yes.
I love that simple math. Yeah. I didn't think about that. I'm maybe some of our audiences, and even if you think about this, it could come across a little bit sort of, well, you've been there, done that, now you can sit down and pontificate, right? So I just want to make sure that the message that you are trying to send is the right one, right? Which is, you're not encouraging people to work less hard, right? You're not encouraging people or dads or moms to not pursue their career dreams. But you're also saying be aware of the overarching flow of life.
Absolutely.
And make sure that you have place for everything.
Absolutely. It's all about balance.
Right.
What I was trying to say is trying to overachieve in one part of life.
Right.
And pausing another part, let's say parenting part, assuming that you can catch up on that later is not going to happen.
It's a false sort of premise.
Exactly. So I think it's all about balance. I think it's very hard, but really important to set boundaries.
Right.
So you can get a call on a Sunday afternoon saying, hey, there's a very important presentation. Can you start working on this and give it to me on Monday morning? And maybe there are times, maybe a couple of times in a year, you have to do that.
Right.
But most times you could choose to just say, yes, I will do this, but let me come back on a Monday, spend the weekend with the kids, and I'll try and, see best what I can do on a Monday. And it wouldn't make that much of a difference to the outcome timelines.
Yeah.
So it's just the choices we make, and sometimes we're so career driven that we want to just show up at work.
It's a default response.
It's a default response. We've been taught with that, be good and work sincerely, work hard. I would say show up well as an at work or in your career, but also show up well as a parent. So I think balance is hard, especially with social media, with all the engagements. I think setting boundaries and a simple thing with my kids, they know it when I'm not listening to them, although I'm physically with them.
Pretending,
Yes, they're like, can you just have with your mobile? And my kids are like, Dad, I just want you to watch, this Marvel movie with me. Really watch it, not just sit and do your mobile. And it matters to them because they enjoy being and watching together. So
it happened to me last night. Like we were watching, Vinny was out on a social thing. So I, of course, hey, let's watch a movie together. And we did. So we set the movie. It was a good movie. And of course, it's not hooking you up as much as it's hooking them. So I go into my phone and 2 minutes later, naively ask, hey, what happened? Like, what are you doing, Daddy? You're not watching the movie.
Exactly.
So
it matters to them.
It happened last night with me.
Exactly. So that's happened so many times to me. And just a small example, when I kind of course corrected a little bit, being just present with them. It's not about the amount of time, just being present.
And I'll tell you, it's not easy to be present.
Yeah, it's very hard.
Yeah.
Because you're in the back of your mind is the next office presentation or is something else going on. And
Mind's racing.
Exactly, all the time. And my kids would just like, when this shift happened, within a couple of weeks, they're like, Papa, you're fun to be with these days. And my son says, Papa, you're actually listening to me. These are his words. Papa, you're
Oh, that's
actually listening.
beautiful.
And I'm like, wow. So that kind of
That's
gave me that,
music.
yeah, that kind of told me mentally that I'm kind of on the right track.
Yeah.
And it takes a little effort. And even today, we make a lot of mistakes and we try to keep course correcting. But I think it's the small things that if we take care of
Yeah.
with the kids, just being present with them, just listening. Sometimes, they're sharing their their apprehensions about world and life with us.
Yeah.
And they're not expecting an answer. They're just expecting us to just be there and listen. And most times I see when the kids are about to go to bed, that is when they're most vulnerable and they just want you to listen. They just want you to be there. And the context would be, a friend not being able to join school this year for some reason, or a teacher, having a particular comment or suggestion for them, and, it matters to them. And they just want you to be there and listen. And you just need to not do much. You just need to hug
Yeah.
them. So I mean, these are the small things. And I don't think it's a either or kind of a choice.
Yeah,
It's
you can
just
do
that
both.
being more, yeah, exactly. And being more conscious and deliberate.
Yeah. Well, it's so refreshing to hear this from you coming from a dad because, I know very well, again, there's no statistics, but a lot of kids are just craving to have this with their dads.
Yeah. And trust me, I've made all the mistakes.
Right, of course, we all have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, when mommy does it, it's kind of, accepted.
Yes.
Mommies do it all the time. But there's something about your dad listening to you that stays with you. Similarly, there's something about that moms do,
Yeah.
which only moms can do, right?
Absolutely.
And both are important for all the kids who have the fortune to have both moms and dads. We know that not all kids have moms and dads together. So there is a place, and that's one of the things that I'm trying to shine a light on through this conversation, which is there is a place for dads to make their presence felt, right? Make some change, make some impact, touch the children's lives, which is very unique and it has a power of its own, right? Would you agree?
Absolutely. I agree with that. I would just go one step further and say, in my view, the way, especially non-verbally,
Yeah.
the way you are with fathers are with kids, around kids, it develops, the kids gain a lot of emotional resilience through their dads. So the emotional security that they have, it could be simple thing like, hey, dad, I went to I went for this class for a particular game and this is what happened, and the other child said this. And sometimes you don't need to tell them to go pick up a fight or
Right.
go and complain to the coach, or you could also say, hey, it's okay. But sometimes just listen and just hug them and say,
Yeah.
what
I
else?
feel you, yeah. Yeah.
So if kids know that they have a dad who's listening and who's just emotionally there, I believe they feel a lot more secure and grow up into individuals who feel very secure about their own presence and identity. I think
Why
that really
do you
matters.
feel that that's so important coming from the dad?
Because I think for mom, it's always expected that there's unconditional love,
Right.
and that the kids get it, that no matter what, the mom's going to be there for and love them. And
Yeah.
same with dads. But dad, because the way the society views and the way
Right.
just traditionally it's been the breadwinner
Yeah.
in the family, and if the dad's able to spend time during those vulnerable moments with the kids,
Yeah.
I believe that, I'm not saying either or. Moms definitely, anyways,
Right.
who always
I get
are,
it, yeah.
more aware than are always aware about this and they're unconditional. But dads, because they're busy with work, or sometimes they just traditionally dads are not kind of expected to to encourage emotional resilience in kids. They're more
Right.
like be tough and
Be
all of
strong
that.
and, yeah.
But I think the way we show up to our kids, they could develop a lot more emotional resilience, which I think is so important in today's world where knowledge and data has not much relevance in the chat GPT
That's
era of the world.
fascinating. That's fascinating. I've been, as I told you, I didn't have enough time with my dad and had a lot of time with my mom and grandmom, right? So a lot of my strengths are coming from there. And I didn't realize, like, for example, the point that you're making and how it plays out in me, right? But as I grew older and older, and I spend more time with my wife, there are times when I would not be very confident, right? Or I will seek a father figure, for example, in the workplace, because it was missing. So without that crutch, I would feel insecure. So I could connect the impact of this. Not that my dad intentionally said, "Well, I'm going to be away from you," so that
Wow.
you know.
Thanks for the
But there is
share.
a
Yeah.
there is a part of that that's I'm awakening to more and more of what is that unique place that a dad can play,
Yeah.
with my own life as an adult.
Yeah. So, again, absolutely. I think it's a wonderful share. If even if kids are able to see those vulnerable moments,
Yeah.
with you being a dad, like let's say we go through some challenge at work, we didn't have a good day. The kids learn a lot if you're just being transparent with them, and I think
That you're
I
not
think
winning all the time.
absolutely, and they need to learn that, and I think that they need to build up that resilience, especially emotionally,
Yeah.
because intelligence will only take you that far, especially in today's world.
100%.
I think EQ
Yeah.
is so much more important, or equally important, like IQ these days. So I think dads, if they kind of spend those times, be a little vulnerable with the kids, it really makes a lot of difference to the kids, especially in the growing years.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thanks for sharing that message. I know I've been very, very curious to know about your recent journey, even more.
Yes.
I would say enlightening, because I know that there's a lot of people who have been wanting to, or who are wanting to do what you've done in the last couple of years, or last year, which is intentionally taking a break from your highly successful professional career. I know it is a subject in itself, even without the topic of parenting.
Sure.
But I just want to keep the lens of parenting, and if you can share how the journey has been, what led to your decision. I suspect it was to do with what you're sharing already, your evolution. But talk to us through the decision of taking a break from an immensely successful career, just to create space for yourself, and taking a break from career.
Yeah, I mean, two or three things, and then I would want to focus on the parenting aspect, and
Yeah.
it's been a learning for me. But one, I was really not happy.
Yeah.
I started as a professional who was really happy, loved what he did, what I did, but of course worked really hard to kind of achieve more and more. But it was beginning to not be as much fun. It was a hard call, at the top of, at seemingly at, a really top of your career at 38, 39 years of age, kind of take a call to have a 1 year, or I didn't even define a time period to take some time off. And, obviously a lot of people were very curious. I'm putting it very politely, but I was very intent on this. But my thesis was very simple, and the parenting comes in picture here. One of my thesis was, if I'm not a happy individual, then the way I show up at home, whether as a partner or as a parent or as a son, it's going to reflect that's going to reflect on entire family, in terms of if I'm not happy, I can't kind of then tell everybody else and encourage joy at home.
Yeah.
It does kind of spread around. So that was one. I wanted to be, I think each individual needs to be happy or joyful to start with, to then try and be a happy parent or a happy partner. So that was one reason, very personal. But the second thing I realized, and the crucible moment I mentioned earlier, there were a couple of crucible moments.
Yeah.
One was book. And then in one of the conversations, my wife was like, 2 years back, my wife was like, we need to have a really big birthday party for the kids. I said, okay, we can just have a pizza party or whatever. She said, no, they're turning 10. I'm like, oh my God, they've turned 10. That was like a shocking moment for me.
Oh, wow.
I just didn't realize I just thought they were still 3 or 4. And it may sound
Right,
very...
it stays in your mind.
but
They're
just
still babies. And
exactly, the time just flew by. And I was like, they're 10 already. And that was one of the moments I'm like, the magic window with the kids is a small one. So that one of the other intentions was during the sabbatical to spend more time and just be there. And in one of the other readings I had, it just says, just have those doing nothing time with kids.
yeah.
So one of my key, and my kids are right now 12 years of age, and I can see them rapidly growing, right? And teenagers then want, while they love parents, they want less and less of a time to spend with parents, and they get involved in their own work as well as their friends.
Yep.
So one of the big thing for me during this phase of my life was, how best can I capture that magic window, whatever is left of it, because I missed a large part of that. And can I just be more intentional? So and when you have those intentions where you want to be happy, or you want to reset the way you kind of show up for your kids, I think it becomes very easy to take those decisions, because you look beyond all the success, all the traditional
Yeah.
measures of extrinsic rewards, and like, okay, what really does matter to me? For me, it matters that I'm happy, my family is happy, and my kids and I get time to spend with each other.
Yeah.
So then the decision was not hard. Of course, I planned for it a bit, and I must say, exactly, it's been a year, in this July, and I've done a lot of things that otherwise I was not able to, and hopefully now I can integrate into my daily routine as I start, my next journey whenever I start some entrepreneurial venture. So from dropping kids to school, which is when we both always kind of
run into each other,
bump into each other, but also had the joy of picking them up from school.
Yep.
And seeing their tired faces
Yep.
when I pick them from school, and then when I'm just there, I'm like, give me your bags, let me carry it for you.
Yeah.
And they're like, they're tired, but they're relating to you about how the day was, and
I can so see the bond
Yeah.
you guys have. I
Yeah.
love it. Watching all of you.
yeah, I enjoyed those moments, and then
Yeah.
just doing nothing, watching the same Marvel movie the 7th time with the kids in the summer holidays.
Yeah.
I think that's some of the best things I
Yeah.
could do with my time.
Well, just for our audience, to put it in perspective, you didn't just leave any job. You are a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar business.
Yeah.
So I can totally imagine to walk away from all that at the top of your game. Not that you walked away from forever, but even to decide to take a break is a courageous decision. You should be so proud.
No, I'm grateful that I had the courage.
Yeah.
And I think it's obviously I had a lot of backing of my partner, but also the kids were pretty supportive. So
Yeah.
it was news to them, but they were pretty supportive of my daughter was like, Papa, if this is what makes you happy and you want to take some time off and just rest well and just reprioritize, just please do it. And that was pretty good support for me.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I was just curious, like, what was Kavita's reaction when you broke the news to her?
Yeah,
Or
but,
you
with-
kind of had been
yes,
sort of,
with Kavita, it was like, it was more gradual. She
Yeah,
knew that
yeah.
I was not happy, and she knew I was, I've been, worked too hard for my own good. So she was like, take a good break, but do ensure that you start something which you love doing,
yeah.
and not kind of wander into just having a complete vacuum over a long period of time. So she was super supportive, and I gave myself pretty much a year, 15 months. I said, that's a good enough time to kind of look inward, spend time, do the things that I really want to do, whether it's the kids, whether it's travel, whether it's with my parents.
Your
So
own health.
My own health. I mean,
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of really focus. So it's an amazing time off. And I think the other great fringe benefit, which I didn't realize at that time, is by placing myself before all the other expected routines or expectations of the world,
Yeah.
in terms of how you approach work, how you approach your career, how you approach money. I think my kids also kind of picked up some of that. And in terms of, they know that, dad took a break because he was not happy and he wanted to take some time off.
Prioritized himself.
He prioritized himself. I think that's a great learning if they can kind of take 10% of that learning, and it is not by intention, but if they take that learning, I think it's great, because as individuals, I think, and we were just chatting about it, we are so focused on having our kids get great grades, or be good at sport, or be resilient, or ensure they apply to the right universities, have a good financial backing. But we kind of, I think the ability to encourage them to seek joy,
Yeah.
which they are anyways naturally born with, but over time we kind of condition them otherwise to work hard and to do it and then be happy. So I hate that philosophy of do this, achieve this, and then be happy. I don't think that
Yeah.
you can work hard and be happy at the
You
same
can
time.
sequence it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think the ability to encourage kids to seek joy. So even if, let's say, they are doing lawn tennis for 2 months, and then one fine they say they don't want to do it, I think it's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
The individual, they're figuring their way in life, and
Yeah,
we-
they're testing
our-
different things.
Exactly, testing. Our job as parents is just to ensure
Just
we give them
expose.
enough exposure,
Yep.
and ask them that question of what do you have, what do you think you're having fun at?
Yeah.
When they ask me, Papa, there are 3 classes and it's tough, which one should I draw? I'm like, which one do you really,
Yeah.
which are the ones you really love doing? That's it, without any purpose. It's not about getting a certificate in a piano lesson because you're going to get better college. No, it's just about which. So I think if we could do some of that, which this break has helped me to think through, I think the kids kind of hopefully pursue things for the right reasons. The last thing I would want as a parent is them being in the same stage I am at, which is super successful but not happy. I think being reasonably successful but happy individuals is a far better outcome.
Yeah, that's profound. And I'm so glad that you're sharing this knowledge with all of us. I remember Steve Jobs' famous Stanford speech, right? When he dropped out of
Absolutely.
college, he said, instead of going to classes that I should have gone, started going to classes that I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And that changed
Everything.
the direction. And
He would not have
it
had that
all
ideas.
connects later, right? All the
Absolutely.
dots connect.
Absolutely. So it's
So,
hard.
yeah.
I do want
So you
to
went to liberal arts classes.
yes,
Instead of
and the
going,
calligraphy. And
right, exactly.
I think I do want to say that it's not easy. Like
not
we are all
easy.
conditioned, even as
Totally.
parents, we have our own conditioning.
So wired, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, little bit of awareness and just little bit of prioritizing their happiness and not just their career or their future.
Yeah.
I think it just kind of helps them just be kids. They're still kids. There's a
Yeah.
long way ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. That's really inspiring. I'm hoping that it's resonating with a lot of our folks. Let's shift to another topic. How do you and Kavita kind of balance your roles as parents?
Yeah.
I know we talked about moms doing a lot, and I mean a lot of dads particularly struggle. We know that all dads want to get involved, right? In this generation, more and more dads want to get involved, but they're probably struggling. Like, where do I play a role? So, what's been our sort of tenet of
Yes.
how do you play a role?
So I think it's just evolved naturally and organically.
Yeah.
Not that Kavita and I sat and discussed about it, but I think she's the tough one in a good way. She's a loving mother and homemaker, and she also has her own career. But she's the tough one, so that she ensures that whether it's the logistics or the kids do need a parent who's
Keeps the train running.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And because I spend so much time at work, I kind of then used to try to make that up by trying to be over caring and over protective, and just kind of agree to most things that they said. So this was how we started. But I think as I look back and the way we are functioning today, I think we kind of play the good cop, bad cop quite nicely. I think the kids also are pretty smart, so they get it and they know how to kind of they know which parent to go to for what. But typically, I would be more exploratory, and I would be more encouraging of anything that they'd want to do. Even sometimes it may just not be the logical thing to do, but one parent has to just ensure that the timelines are maintained and basics are basics. The kids just maintain some discipline, like whether it's managing their own school bag to their own getting up and exactly. So I think we split like that, and I think my wife is amazing, so she does the hard part of the job. I get to kind of be that dad who is being funny and who's always saying things that they're like, oh my god, dad, can you just stop? And I love doing that because I think that the bonding that happens, and as they're growing into teenagers, I want to be, while I obviously want to be firm when it's required, but I want to be more of fun with them. And because I think they can relate their fears and their thoughts better if they're not very they're not feeling very disciplined or very controlled all the time. So I'm a little more easy with the kids if they want to watch movies late night, or they want to binge eat, or if they want to do some stuff. I think it's okay within a certain framework. My wife is a little bit more who ensures that they go to the classes, they manage and show up in the right time and right manner.
Right. Yeah. Now I know that we have a boy and a girl, and I find raising them and watching them grow fascinating. Right.
I couldn't agree more.
As much as the world is changing all the time, more towards equality and more towards this sort of balanced world, which I love. Right. At the same time, it's fascinating to watch how they are growing as individuals and bringing their true selves to life. And it's not easy all the time, right? Like, because there's an ecosystem, there's a social conditioning, there's reinforcements all around us, whether we like it or not. And a lot of times subconsciously, we also reinforce some of those biases. What boys should do, what girls should do, intellectually knowing very well that sometimes, you may be coming from a bias, and sometimes not knowing. So how do you handle that? I mean, particularly Srishti and Srish, they're twins.
Twins, yeah.
Literally The same age, same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think
How does that play out in your family?
Yeah, they couldn't. While they're twins, same age, just couldn't be more different than
Right.
each other. They have completely different likings, and they have different nature as
Yeah.
as one would expect that two individuals would be very different.
Yeah.
What I have seen, maybe it's just because I spent a large part of the time in Mumbai and then in Bangalore, more in the working professional parents kind of a circuit. I have not seen that much of a bias in
Sure.
terms of what's expected, but I agree with you completely that the subtle conditioning that
Yes.
we have gone through, the unsaid conditioning, that kind of shows up time and again. And my daughter is a fighter, so she's like, why should I do this if he's not doing it? Or why should I not get to do this? Why am I any different? So even if some of the times that we make a mistake, so I think
That's beautiful.
Yes, I think there's a self-correcting mechanism there.
They hold you accountable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it happens the other way around as well. Sometimes my son may be feeling low, and it's pretty okay for a boy to cry.
Yeah.
So we have not kind of really focused on it,
Of course.
that way. But
Yeah.
I think by and large, it does come in as a bias when we go to our hometown, or generally, in some of the things that just show up as traditionally.
Yeah.
But by and large, I think it corrects, or it shows up in it. It corrects it by itself, because the kids are so aware nowadays. They're like, why should I do this?
Yeah.
He's not doing it.
Right.
So that you don't have an answer. And if you have 2 or 3 of such instances, then you're a little more careful as a parent to not push your biases on them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it comes alive, particularly, I see it when they're engaging with our older, like, grandparents.
Yes.
Grandparents are absolutely loving and doting, but they also have some of these
Yes.
concepts which you don't agree with anymore,
Yeah.
right? Like my father-in-law sometimes would say, well, boys don't cry. Like, he would just straight up say, he was a police officer.
Okay,
Right.
I get it.
I know he doesn't mean bad, but you have, like, whether he liked it or not, I jump in and I intervene and say, Dad, we're not encouraging Neve not to cry.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I know it's not comfortable in that setting, like 3 generation, my son and daughter, like everyone's sitting, and you have to intervene, because if you don't intervene.
But that's great. You're sending the right message, and Neve knows that you're just there for him, and you're not setting an expectation of a particular behavior, which I think can be very conditioning to them as they move forward.
I mean, they look up to grandpa,
Yes.
right? And I also tell them that, look, Tata, they call him Tata. Tata loves you. He doesn't mean anything bad.
Yeah.
But back in the day, in 40s, 50s, 60s, men grew up being told that it's not cool to cry.
Yeah.
But now we've learned better. We know better.
Yeah. No, I can completely relate to that in my childhood. But I think with the kids now, I think it's a far more better environment that they are growing up in. So hopefully they don't see more of that. I think schooling also plays a very big important role. So the choice of school matters a lot, and the parenting community matters a lot. So I think hopefully they can also hopefully they feel encouraged enough to handle it and take it up on their own as well. Yeah, I mean, I just think we get this one shot at being a parent, where we can shape some of the ways in which our children think.
Yeah.
And I think as I mentioned earlier, the magic window is pretty short.
Yeah.
So I would love if more people are aware about and not realize it so late as I did.
Yeah.
And one of the things I really love, and I caught on to it lately, is a daily newsletter, a half a page, maybe even a quarter page newsletter, which is called the Daily Dad. So it's a simple, I love that. It's based on Stoic philosophy.
Yeah.
So all it says is just be there, spend time.
Yeah.
None of all the things you're worried about
Yeah.
as an individual or human being will matter in the large scheme of things. But your kid, if you don't kind of be present and spend time, or teach him kindness, or just let him blossom into a individual that he or she would want to be, truly wants to be, it says all of other things are insignificant compared to this. So that I think for me is an amazing small capsule every day, where you can just it comes into the inbox, you read it, and you just get reminded, because we as humans keep having the tendency to fall back into our old patterns. So that one thing made a lot of difference to me. And then just being there for those small special moments at school. And I remember playing some game which I had not played, for a relay kind of a game which I had not played with a rope which had not played for maybe 20, 25 years.
Wow.
And when I started the break, I went to the school and they said, parents, I needed to be participated. I need to participate in this, and I kind of played it. I'm like, wow, it helped me connect to my inner child.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. I mean, I just think it's about just being there, being present,
Yeah.
and sometimes not really trying too hard to ensure everything goes as per plan. So if the kid wants 2 ice creams, sometimes, of course, we don't want that they have unlimited junk. But if they want 2 ice creams and they really want it,
Yep.
let them have it without feeling guilty.
Yeah.
Let them tell them, enjoy it. Let's just sit and enjoy it. So I think that's it. I think I really believe in just being there, letting them understand that prioritizing joy
Yeah.
and happiness is really important while we do all the other things. And if they can get that one thing, it would be, it's great.
Yeah. That resonates a lot with me in terms of these rituals. One of the things that there's a subtle difference, or probably not so subtle, between encouraging and advising kids to do things that they're passionate about. One of the things that I tried once is like Nila. I know Srishti and Nila go to the art class. And I as a child, I loved growing. I loved doing art. I grew up loving art, right? And I thought, like, let me just do something together. So one day, Nila and I just did a collaborative painting together.
Wow! And how was the experience?
I tell you, it's just so mind blowing. And when it was over, we just put both our names.
Oh, that's so
and the date
special. Wow!
And the process of collaboration, right? Hey, like throw some red in there, or this is looking too light. That's another level of memory. And more so, I saw Nila really feeling like whatever she loves, is being watched, enjoyed, and is being participated with, right? I mean, I wish I could do more of it. Trust me, that's the only thing that I've done. I mean, I've been wanting to do another piece of art, but I've never got down to it. But I feel like that's one thing that I, if I could do more and more of as dad, whatever they're doing, just co-create with them.
Yeah, that's a great way to spend
Even
time.
if you're goofy and really bad at it.
That's the best.
Yeah.
If you're bad at it, it's even better for the kids. Yeah. So I also try and do it. It's hard because we are, my son has so much energy and
I know.
I don't have that much energy. He loves rockets and aeroplanes and he makes them all kinds of shapes with paper and he wants to just go keep climbing, and flying them and then come back and collect. But I think it's fun. At the end of it, they enjoy it so much and that's a special time. And, if you participate with them and really do it and not just be a bystander.
Or just praise it when it's all done.
If you really play with them and do it and show interest, they really, really, really have a great time. And they're just so, I can see the connection improving so much, enhancing it to a different level when we do these, just play with them what they want to play. And they really love it because all they want is their parents who are a big part of the world to share doing what they like doing.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I listen to a lot of podcasts, clearly, obviously. And I'm very curious at people who have accomplished things about life to learn about what, when did that seed get planted, right? How early did that get planted? And more often than not, they will quote to some innocuous moment in their childhood when somebody noticed something that they're doing and praise them, right? Like I was listening to this story of Brian Grazier, who's one of the Hollywood's biggest directors. And he's like, hey, Brian, how did you get to think about movies? And he was saying, it was my grandma. I would just as a kid, like do some plays or do something and my parents would not notice. And my grandma said, Brian, you're the greatest.
Wow. And do this.
You'll be the greatest artist ever, And he said, it like set sails. I had wings in my arms. And if I think about it, that actually was when Brian Grazier was born.
Wow.
So to your point, like when, Cherished is doing this plane and rockets and flying things and seeing daddy watching or mommy praising, who knows 30 years later what he's going to say. When was this seed planted,
Exactly. In fact, not a perfect parallel, but I remember a point in time in my life when maybe I was 16, 17, or 18 maybe, and I was appearing for this a CA examination, which is considered to be pretty tough. And I had a lot of pressure
Yes.
because I was a good student and I had got ranks in my previous exam. And I kind of fell sick
Oh.
just before exam. I recovered just in time, but I was like, I may not.
gonna blow this,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was still struggling on the recovery, but I'm going to not be getting a rank because I just lost so much time.
Right.
A couple of weeks makes a lot of difference. So I was like, and I told my mom I'm still struggling a little bit with health and the headaches persist and all of that. And so why don't I skip this attempt and give the next one? And I mean, I'll be very well prepared and I can get a rank. I remember my mom saying, hey, beta, not writing is not an option.
Wow.
Write and fail, that's perfectly fine. It's great.
Mom told you this?
Yeah, write and fail, absolutely okay. Not writing is not an option because you've worked hard for this, and just because you are afraid of failure or you think you'll not get a rank is not a good enough reason not to write. And of course, you were not well, last couple of weeks, we understand, but just write it however you
That's
can.
profound.
And it's okay. And you anyways are not writing, so you're saying that you anyways are not going to pass. So just write and not pass. It's fine. And I actually that was a pivotal moment for me, which just said you always have to keep trying.
Yep. Keep showing up.
Absolutely. And I went into the examination, and I was a young kid that time. This was CA finals, and I went to the exam without any pressure because there was no pressure of expectation from my parents.
Yep.
And I had in my mind anyways resolved that I will fail. And it was so liberating. I just wrote my heart out on the exam paper. And it turned out I got All India first rank in CA exams, which are considered to be very tough.
What?
Yeah.
You got All India first rank? Oh my God.
And I would credit that to my mom's thing saying,
Just
not writing is not an option. Write and fail, it's perfectly okay. And I think that set in motion a lot of things and a lot of ways in which I approach life today.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with you. Few small moments in childhood where a parent shows up can completely shift the way kids kind of look at world, because they're still shaping their view of the world.
Right.
And that's why it's even so much more important that if we are having a bad day, and I have done this so many times, that we kind of pass it on to the kids. And it's so important to hang up the boots once you're back from office.
Yep.
Have a changing ritual in your mind, and be at home. Forget about everything else of the day and be there, because someone at home is picking up and
all
observing all the
you.
things that is just happening. And sometimes my kids will be like, hey Papa, but what happened? When I have when we have fights, or we have a bad day,
or you snap at them or something.
they're like, what happened? And when I look back, I'm like, nothing happened. It's just we being adults. Nothing happened. So I think it's hard, and I wish we could always be very mindful, but I think keep trying to do as much as we can.
Sure. Yeah. That's really beautiful. That story is really amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll start to wrap up, because I know there's so much to talk about.
It's been fun.
A couple of things. One is, I know there's, while you and I have talked about all these things, we know very well that there's still a lot of challenges in our ecosystem, organizations, of the messages that we are sending to people who are in the workforce, right? And a lot of them might be thinking it's nice to talk about this in a podcast, but how do you make it happen in the workplace? And I'm always thinking about what will empower moms and dads in the workplace to do the right things for their children. And I was just curious, I was imagining you in the workplace, you being the leader of the organization and following this life, right? Like prioritizing children, prioritizing yourself. Did you feel like, what was the reaction? Did you feel that you could make a shift? Like, did you hear some things from your teammates, people who are struggling with some of this decision, not to take a sabbatical, but I'm wondering, like, how could they have shifted some of the mindsets of the workforce that you're leading?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one, because modern workplace, it's all about the organization goals and targets and all of that. I think two things can make a difference. One is at an individual level, if we have a little bit more clarity on what our life goals are. And I think I didn't touch upon this earlier, but quite often working professionals, because the way we are conditioned, we only have career goals.
Yeah.
And that's what I did for the 90% of my life till now, which is till I was 37, 38. And if people could have, working professional could have life goals, which is just beyond financial goal or career goals, that really helps in setting in context what are the things you're juggling with and which you need to balance.
Yeah.
So that also gives you clarity when you're everything is competing for our time today, right? Whether it's a social media, whether it's work, whether it's kids, whether it's social events. So when you are faced with a challenge, choice,
Yeah.
If you kind of have clarity in your mind, maybe think in terms of buckets, like this is 20% of my time, this is 80%, 50% of my time, this aspect, my health, is 10% of my time, right? It really helps to make those choices, and sometimes the trade-offs are not that crucial.
Yeah.
So it's just that we hate saying no to our boss, but the trade-offs are not that crucial. So that's one at the individual level. I think it's about having life goals and a little bit more clarity on what are the important buckets in life. Like for me, career was 99% of the bucket, and 1% was my health, my kids, my family,
Fascinating.
my sleep, everything else, till about 2 years back.
There was before and after.
Exactly. And I thought career success, money would take care of everything else, but it doesn't really. And the second, I think, is leaders or people who are leading a group, a bunch of people, maybe the entire company or a function or just people, just give that much more flexibility to people within the team to kind of deliver what they expected, but with more flexibility on time.
Sure.
Right? If someone has to attend a 4 p.m. school event, it's fine. Even maybe you could reschedule the meeting where you also are present to a different date. It's just some kind gesture.
Sure.
Because those young individuals are also going to be leaders someday, and they can kind of, if they see that people are being accommodative, they will carry that forward. So I think I'm saying that don't expect less from the workforce or from the employees or from the team. Just
don't
give
cut
them
a slack.
Exactly. Give them more flexibility. And when they see you also prioritizing some of these things, it's also the right way to lead and to show up as a leader. Because showing up as a leader, one of the other things I realized is if I'm so unhappy, then there's no way I'll go and be a great leader.
Right.
You have to be individually sorted and balanced for you to really because
You should have slept well last night.
Absolutely. Exactly. Because what you do and what you are as a leader, how you show up, is a huge reflection of how you're doing at a personal level.
Right.
So and I was struggling, and that's
and
why
they see through it.
They 100%, just like the kids, they see through it. So I think just a little bit more flexibility and a little more clarity on life goals, I think, can help to balance this competing pockets of life priorities better.
Thank you. That's really powerful, particularly coming from you. I hope that people who are listening will take this message and feel more empowered. Because that's one of the things that I hope that comes out of this conversation. All right, the last couple of things, okay?
Sure.
One is, any tips on any books, podcasts, shows, movies that you're watching that you thought was really, meaningful to you, that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, I mean, what I already said, but two things. One is the dailydad.com. That's a Stoic philosophy and how you approach parenting. I think that's a simple, very easy capsule. They also have books, but
so it drops every day on your.
It drops every day
box.
in the email, and it's the similar message but differently crafted in stories. I think it's amazing reminder to me every day to show.
I don't
better.
have it actually. I should.
Yeah,
I'll do it.
It's called www.dailydad.com.
Got it.
If I'm right. So that, I think, is a very easy, quick way to kind of be reminded and kind of ensure we don't fall into old patterns. And these are only the small things that matter a lot to the kids. The other one which I loved is the book I mentioned, Top 5 Regrets of the Dying.
Yeah, that's a good
because,
one.
Because we as professionals try to achieve so much, whether in our business or our career. But if you really realize that what are the things that truly matter? And I think we all agree that kids is a large part of the things that truly matter. Like in the very few of those, but kids is a large component of that.
Totally.
So these two things really really matters. There's another book called Die with Zero. That's another radical book, but it says you can only do certain things at a certain stage of life. And the ultimate goal of life is not to maximize wealth, but to maximize happiness and good moments, joyful moments.
Right.
So I think that's a great book on how
Die
to
with Zero. Yeah.
Die with Zero. It's by a billionaire hedge fund manager, Bill Perkins. Basic premise is solve for happiness and joyful moments.
Yep.
And there are things you can do when you're 30 or 40, let's say in the context of parenting or even in our own personal context, which you can't do at 60 or 70. So don't postpone something which needs or you to be present today, thinking that you'll have time for it later. So I think these 3 resources I would highly encourage anyone if they have the time to kind of go through.
That's great. Thank you. The last one is any recommendations for our next guest?
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I can recommend a few. I can recommend few individuals.
Yeah.
Some of whom from whom I have learned as well. So one of my friends, he's pretty playful with his child when I see him, and he always has the fun, and the kid is all over him and jumping on him, and it's intentional by design that way.
Wow.
So we were having a good time, and we were trying to my friend and me, we were trying to tell his son that hey, your dad is is not the good one, I'm the good one, and and we were just having, so what he said, and then, hey, you both seem not to be not to be so good guys. So it was just a fun moment, but I realized that he had the independence in the house to just kind of also play along and have fun. So so maybe I'll connect you with him.
That sounds great.
His name is Piyush, and maybe it could be an interesting area to explore.
Would love to. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Perfect.
Because this has been a blast. I loved every moment. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge, insights, and more importantly, some of the difficult ones share. So I'm sure we all benefit from this, and hopefully we'll do this one more time and many more times.
Yeah, perfect. It's been a lot of fun for me because it also helped me go back and reflect in time. And I realized, some of the things on my own childhood I had not thought through for some time, and we live on autopilot.
There are cobwebs.
Yes. So it was a lot of fun. So thank you so much. And this is a great initiative. So I would love to be back on the show again.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Vikaash.
Thank you so much.
Have a good weekend.